Well, this is episode 2 of my Forrest Gump life. This is the Halloween time of year version. This is going to be about the most paranormal experience I've ever had. And it happened the night that Mike Scascia died. And I have told this to probably maybe half dozen people at most. To be honest with you, at first I didn't know what to think about this experience. And 12 years later, I kind of had a bit of a revelation about that night, and changed everything I thought about it. Now, in telling this story, some of my spiritual beliefs and stuff are not going to be preachy, but they're going to have to be in there. That's part of me. That's part of how I processed this and everything else. And I'm not, as I'm recording this, I'm not sure I'm ever going to really post it. We'll see, but I'm going to record it. I've been working with rigor mortis since, well, we did the Capitol record together in '88, and I met him a couple years before at South by Southwest, playing in the Texas Union. And I'm not going to go into a long history of rigor mortis. That'll probably be another story at some point. But had known those guys for ever since, all those years. There was middle years there where everybody scattered a different direction. Then, later they all came back, and me too. Now, in the fall of 2012, they had spent the first part of the year at Al Jorgensen's studio, or the studio he was working at in El Paso, recording Slaves to the Grave. And late that fall, they asked me, or sometime that fall, they came and approached me about mixing it. And I, of course, said I would be absolutely delighted to. And just before Thanksgiving, I think it was, or right around Thanksgiving time, I got the first files back. And of course, I wasn't there for any of the recording. It was all done quite well. That wasn't a problem. Sammy did a great job on everything. But I had no idea how Mike thought about anything, how the parts were, except just to listen through to them and sort through them at first. Now, we did get together one time after I got the files, maybe twice, where we kind of just went through them and he just kind of talked me through what the ideas were, not even beginning to mix or anything yet, just kind of putting faders up and kind of showing me, what he thought about how he was planning to put things together. And so we had those couple of things, and I said, okay, well, I'll just spend some time here getting everything built and, kind of set up to mix and go through them all and do all the basics and stuff like that. So on December 21st of that year, I went to the Rail to see Rigor Mortis play and to take them CDs that were not anywhere near mixes, but they were just like the first 4 or 5 songs I'd kind of thrown together and put the parts where they were all there. And I just wanted Mike to make sure that everything was there, that all the parts were there, and then we could, discuss a little further, and I'd finish them up. But I took him the CD with the first 4 or 5 super, 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 super rough scratch mixes, just to kind of, again, make sure I had all the parts that were supposed to be there. And some of those were pretty big. Actually, the Gladiator track at the end is 126 tracks or something like that. But anyway, so I had taken them up there, went upstairs, and kind of, hung out with him beforehand. And as it was getting close, time to play, I said, well, I'm going to head down, Mike. I'll see you afterwards, man. Gave him a hug and head down. And they came out and started playing. And one of the things I was really looking forward to was Bloodbath. We had recorded a version of this back in the early days. We recorded a demo of this, about 2 or 3 years earlier, to just do some shopping when they first started to get back together. And then there was another version that was going to be on Slaves to the Grave. And the guitar solo on that is just, to me, the best one there has ever been or ever will be, as far as I'm concerned. It is just everything about Mike in that solo, his beautiful melodies, his incredible precision and speed and everything. And anyway, so I was looking forward to seeing him play that. And they got to the point in the set where they were playing that song. And I was over, if any of you know the rail, and if you know rigor mortis, you probably know the rail. That's when the stage was still over on the side. And so I was kind of over to the side of the sound booth there and was getting ready to move. I kind of wanted to move over just a little bit and get in front of Mike to watch him play that solo. Because again, it had been through a whole bunch of changes and work to it. He had spent a lot of time on every second of that solo. And right before he got to that, as I was kind of shifting my position there, I heard him miss a chord. I heard him off. And that never happens with Mike. Never. And I turned around, shifted my position right quick to look over at him and saw him fall back. And a lot of that's just a blank. I was so numb at the time. And I just knew inside the way it happened is that he's gone. I didn't want him to be. I was hoping I could be wrong, but I knew right away that was it. And again, kind of a blank there. Everybody was freaking out and checking on him, and I stayed back out of the way. There was no reason to run up and try to do anything. And the medics were called, and I know I was in there until they showed up. I don't remember how long that was. Again, it's just kind of a blank. And when they came in, they asked everybody to go outside. And we may have done before that. But anyway, at some point, they kind of asked everybody to go outside. Most people went out the kind of back door there and hung out down at the end of the building over there on the side street where the ambulance and stuff was. I just wanted to really be by myself at that point. And I went back out the front door to the parking lot area right there outside the front. And again, I think I was out there a long time before I finally left, but not until something happened. So again, I was out there for a while. I don't know. I was kind of chain smoking, which is not good. Smoking is bad for you. And praying for Mike and just kind of, reaching out, reaching up about this and if he could possibly be okay, if he could, again, Mike was a close friend. And there's hundreds of people can say that because he was that kind of guy. Now, he could be a smart ass and he could poke at you, but Mike was just a great, great guy. And, I loved him and, he loved me back, like I said, like a lot of other people. But I was just kind of bereft out there standing outside the front door. And again, at some point, as I was standing out there, I looked over to my right from the front door, kind of just noticed somebody walking up that street. The street that crosses the front part of the rail club there. And I didn't pay him much attention. But I kind of noticed him coming, and it's unusual to see people walk in that neighborhood. I don't think I've really seen anybody walk by like that any other time. But as he was walking down the street, I kind of noticed that he was looking at me as he walked down the street. And he just kept coming that way. And again, I didn't think anything too much of it at the time. I thought it felt eerie. I got to say, from the very first, I was like, this is odd. And he, again, kind of kept looking at me. And as he got, like kind of straight out in front of me almost, he just turned left and started walking right down toward me in the parking lot there. And with kind of a sneer is not the right word, but kind of a sardonic smile, I guess would be on his face. And again, he kind of acted like he knew me, and I'm kind of used to, as bad as I am with names and sometimes remembering people, pretending that I do. And he came up, and I wish I could remember every word. I used to remember everything we said. But he kind of greeted me like I was supposed to know him. And I usually can at least recognize faces. And he was just kind of normal height and build. He had kind of short black hair and a real definite black goatee and mustache together there. And I didn't recognize him. I thought he looked quite striking, like I would have recognized him if I had ever seen him before. And so, but I said, hey man, he greeted me again some kind of how, and I said, how long, hey man, long time no see or something like that. And he said, it hadn't been that long. And I kind of said, I don't remember, again, I can't remember everything. But I said, oh yeah, well, it's good to see you. How you been? And right about then, as he was walking toward me, then he turned and started walking up the parking lot, right as he said, a lot better than you right now. And with kind of that wry grin, kind of a little bit smart alecky at least. And he then just kept walking. He walked on a little further, and then he turned up and went back up to the street, stepped back out the street, turned and started walking, on down the street, headed south there. And so I kind of followed up there and kind of was watching him walk away. And I swear I just knew any minute when when a car came by or something, he was just going to have disappeared and not be there anymore. But he didn't. He walked up over the crown of the street and disappeared. Now, the other little detail I noticed about him, and he was kind of dressed all in black, and he had the black hair, the goatee. He was carrying something under his arm, like a book or something like that. Now, my original thoughts about this were that it was not a friendly paranormal spirit. That, again, I thought maybe even it was something dark being gleeful about it at first. I could tell it was not normal. I knew that was not a real person, especially by the time he left. And I kind of filed that away, did not know how to process it, did not know why that would have happened, what it was. And again, I told a couple of people about it. And again, didn't know what to think of it. I just knew it happened, and I, felt it, that it was, I was going to say real, but no, it was not real. It was definitely flesh and blood, and it was solid, and it was in this world, but I knew that was something different. Now, again, I am kind of a spiritual seeker, open to checking out a lot of things and seeing what rings true and what doesn't. And one of the things I did a few months ago now was actually on my birthday, at almost the time of my birth. Actually, my time of my birth occurred while we were talking. I talked to someone who the setup is that this person is a channel with my spirit guide and communicates with my spirit guide to get answers for me from my spirit guide. Again, first time ever. And, I'm not going to get too deep into that. If I tell that story, that would be a different one, but I probably won't. But one part of that changed my view, and when I found this out, I knew it was true. I asked, and again, in part of this, testing this to see if I was really felt like what was supposed to be happening was happening. I asked about an event in very vague terms. I asked about the event that happened the night my friend Mike died. And he said, kind of without me going into, I didn't tell any of the story. I really just asked as vague as I could to see what he would say. He said, what you saw was your friend Mike. And at first I was like, well, no, I don't, that doesn't seem right to me. I thought it was something dark. And he said, no, that was Mike saying goodbye. And when I just stopped and thought about it, everything about the attitude of that was Scotia. Even the little twist of, a lot better than you right now. And obviously I was looking pretty forlorn, but this wasn't just somebody who walked by and saw that. And now I really feel like that really was Mike. Now it's been 12 years. It took me to get to that point. Again, I'm not trying to talk anybody into believing in channeling or doing any of that stuff. But that was one of my big test questions, that and a couple of others that got answered correctly and with more understanding than I had to begin with, and this was one of them. And like I said, now when I see that face, I see Mike. I won't go into what he said. He said about Mike and all that. There was nothing bad. That it was just him returning to his original form and leaving. And he came by and said goodbye on the way out. Now, also, there's another little part about that happened that I found out a few months later. And everybody involved said this. I told this story on Facebook back then, but I'll give it a short version. Ray Washam called me. And actually, I think he was on Facebook. We texted or something, but he told me the story about, and I forget the other guy's name, but someone else that had played in ministry, and Ray played in ministry for a while with Mike, and that this guy had a dream shortly after Mike's death that he had gone to the hospital to see Mike, and he was there in bed and all hooked up in tubes and stuff and everything from what I gather. And the guy came up to him and said, "Mike, man, how you doing? How you doing?" And Mike kind of sat up in bed, ripped everything off, kicked off the sheet and said, "Nothing but a flesh wound," and got up and walked out of the room. That also sounds like Mike. So, I think that was, again, my beliefs, that was him saying goodbye that way to that person. And anyway, that's my story. I can't guarantee any of it is anything, but I know it was all real. And I feel quite satisfied now that, sorry, Mike, it took me 12 years to realize that you had stopped by to say goodbye. So that's my Halloween story. I don't know how spooky it is, but it's definitely, it was a lot spookier for the first 12 years that I knew about it than it is now. And now I really at peace with it, and I really feel of course it was. So, now I hope you enjoyed that one. You make of it what you will, but that's the rest of the story. All right. See you next time. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye.